you go. You can follow me. We'll head inside. Oh. I'll give you just a very brief history of the buildings and their construction. Here in the foreground is a very small wooden structure, and there were actually 6 of these. And these were built during the colonial period. They were first the colonial administrative buildings, and then when British Columbia became a province, they became the home of the Legislative Assembly. But they were quite small. They were also made of wood. This is a little bit of a problem. And by the 1890s, they really weren't meeting the needs of the provincial government. So they decided to have a contest, and the winner is a young architect named Francis Mawson Rattenbury. And this was an anonymous contest, so they didn't know anything about the architect. They just chose the best design, and it turns out that Rattenbury was very young. He was only 25 years old, and this was his first major project. Now, Canada is a constitutional monarchy, and we have a parliamentary democracy. So, Queen Elizabeth II is the Queen of Canada, and she's also the head of state. This ceremonial state entrance is only for heads of state. Now, as Queen Elizabeth does not live in Canada, she is represented here by the Governor General. Here in British Columbia, our Lieutenant Governor is the Honourable Judith Guichon, and she can also use this entrance because she represents Queen Elizabeth.
Hello. Hi. My name is Mary Ellen Smith. Who here has heard of me? I see. In 1918, I was the first woman ever elected to the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia. In 1921, I was the first and only female cabinet minister in the entire British Empire. And in 1928, I was the first woman in the Empire to serve as acting Speaker of the House. Not bad, eh? Rather impressive, I'd say. On the 5th of April, 1917, BC women won the right to vote. And then there was me, Mary Ellen Smith, elected 1918. So I hope you understand why I think it's important to remind you who I am.
British Columbia is divided into 85 electoral districts. So we have 85 elected representatives, and their title is Member of the Legislative Assembly. And so for short, we call them MLAs. Now, over to the left side, that's where the governing party sits. And it's the leader of the governing party who will become the premier, the head of the provincial government. And it's around the premier that the executive council, the cabinet ministers, that's where they sit. So we have 19 ministers. They are chosen by the premier, and then they are formally appointed by the lieutenant governor. And to the other side, over to the right, that's where the official opposition sits. Anyone who's not a member of the governing party becomes a member of the opposition, and then the official opposition is the party that wins the second most number of seats in an election. Our country is very young. Confederation was in 1867. It's not that long ago. But our parliament is based on the British Parliament, and it goes back hundreds of years. Now, hundreds of years ago, this is back in 1291, King Charles I was very upset with some members of Parliament. This is in London, England. And he burst into the House of Parliament, and he demanded that the Speaker release 5 members of Parliament. The Speaker said, "No, I can't do that. As the Speaker of the House, I have to do what the House of Parliament instructs me to do, so I can't do that." So the king was very upset, and he left, and he took his guards with him. And after the king left, they closed the doors, they locked them, and they barred it. And ever since that time, in order to be admitted to the Legislative Assembly or the House of Parliament, to an elected house, you must be elected or you must be invited by the Speaker. Question period is 30 minutes. It happens every day starting at 1:30, and this is when the opposition has the opportunity to ask some very pointed questions, some very difficult questions to the Premier and to the cabinet ministers. And this is when you can hear the House get a little bit heated. You know, you can hear some pretty combative back and forth between the opposition and the government. But it's only 30 minutes every day. The rest of the time, they follow very strict parliamentary debate rules and procedure. So I'll talk a little bit about our legislative process. In order for a bill to become a law, it needs to go through 3 readings as well as a committee stage. And then the final stage, before it becomes a law, involves the Lieutenant Governor. So here we have a portrait of the Honourable Judith Guichon, and this is another one of her duties. It's to give royal assent to legislation. So once a bill has been passed, the Lieutenant Governor will come to the chamber upstairs, and again, she has to knock and wait to be invited. And then she'll sit at the Speaker's chair, and the clerks read the bills that have been passed by the House, and the Lieutenant Governor will nod her head, and that gives royal assent to the legislation. And at that point, it will become a law. The building was originally designed with electricity, and they decided to put light bulbs on it to celebrate Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee back in 1897. Now, of course, these days the light bulbs are very different. These are carbon fluorescents. We have just under 3,600 of them, and a light sensor turns them on when the sun sets, and they stay on every night until about 1 o'clock.